What is up, guys? Welcome back to Think Shank. We are jumping in after the circus, aka Golden State Warriors, falling to the Houston Rockets in Houston. Evens the series at 1 apiece, and we are going to dive into it because I have to go to work, and we are going to absolutely knock this out of the park. Go. Starting here with the Rockets, the number one takeaway I had that I think needs to still be hammered home, the dumb as fuck fouling issue is still an enormous issue. The first quarter alone, Amen Thompson gets his third foul with almost 2.5 minutes left. Dillon Brooks gets too early in that first quarter, decides to get his third in the second in potentially the most idiotic way possible, hitting an incredible turnaround jump shot over Draymond late in the clock. It was a tough shot, like virtually every single Rockets make is, and then decides to ram into Draymond running back on defense for his third again in that second quarter. And then you had at the close of it, Şengün with 2 fouls in practically 20 seconds to close, bringing him to 3 fouls. And so you think about going into halftime, I believe it was still a 15-ish point lead for Houston with Amen, Şengün, and Brooks all sitting on 3. I come away thinking the Rockets are honestly pretty fortunate that Jimmy Butler had to leave because of how much his foul pressure would have loosened up their incredible defense after all of these stupid ass fouls. Jimmy Butler only played 8 minutes, and all of those guys had gotten themselves into foul trouble. And the biggest thing about that is you have to consider the psychological implications on how the Rockets can play defense as a result of accumulating all of these fouls. And so, yes, oh my gosh, Amen Thompson has to sit for a longer period of time now, sure, but it has a lot graver implications come the third and fourth quarters, particularly the fourth, because God forbid you guys actually play a little more maturely and don't continue to rack up these fouls before that point. And then obviously the Warriors have made their money on these third quarter avalanches where they can score in flurries and then lock up or elevate their defense to a supreme level. Really stupid. You're very lucky. Great. 2, Jalen Green team. At halftime, he has 15 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 turnovers alone in that first quarter, settling in, but generally speaking, not a horrible first half for Jalen Green, especially considering how awful the first game went. Fast forward to the start of the third, and Şengün finds him in the corner on a back screen, basically for him to hit that corner 3. And with a player of this much talent, I don't think anybody can debate that point. That is all it takes to light the fuse. Before halftime, 15-2-5. In the third quarter alone, 15-2-1. But also most notable to me, 2 steals and 0 turnovers. Those latter 2 categories matter so much more to me, considering the growth that we need to see game to game in the postseason for these younger, very high upside guys. 2 steals, especially because it's starting to feel like Jalen Green can elevate his overall game on both ends of the floor when his shots are falling, which isn't that unique for young star upside players. Even going back to the first quarter, honestly, I thought it was pretty clear Ime Udoka, the coaching staff, had some very fierce reconditioning words for Jalen Green about impacting the game. Even when his shots aren't fouling, he had that really, really highly physical turnover on Steph about halfway through the first quarter. They get the jump ball, turn it over anyway. He's up in Buddy Hield's grill and making him pass out even when he gets some space, dribble driving into the paint. Of course, 0 turnovers. That could mean not many assists, obviously only having 1, but the amount of times that this guy was kind of dribbling into bad territory and then still turning the ball over in the first game. It is still a positive sign, even though Jimmy Butler isn't out there and all of those things. That, to me, stood out. Moving over now to the Warriors side, number one is that Steve Kerr, after game one, I must have missed this in the post game, was quoted saying, "I played Steph too many minutes," end quote. That is really concerning because it is a different breed of thought than the complaints about the off-ball physicality and the whistles and yada yada. Because to me, the physicality doesn't just overall elevate as the Rockets get more and more desperate to win the series. It's only getting smarter, in my opinion, recognizing what plays the Warriors want to run, when to get into them, how to get away with it, is only going to get better, again, for a defensively programmed team. When you talk about fatigue and overall getting worn down, the worst and most concerning part of that is that there's really only one solution. Fewer minutes, more depending on your other role players, Jimmy Butler, which is a great tie-in now to the health woes overall takeaway. Jimmy Butler's injury, obviously, Amen Thompson trips into his path back down to the floor, fucks the shit out of his tailbone as soon as he fell. Well, you could hear it even through the TV. That looked terrible. And on top of that, Brandon Pajemski gets food poisoned. This is why you don't get sushi in Houston. And unfortunately, he looked like he was shitting his pants all day. Honestly, as somebody who has been food poisoned, I'm not going to make any more jokes than that. It really does suck. I do think there's a lot of valor in coming back in the third quarter after exiting the first. Everybody thought he was not going to be able to come back, but this was the Jonathan Kuminga welcoming ceremony to the postseason and welcoming him back into the team and playing on the floor, and it was his first NBA game since April 11th. It is the 24th today, so almost 2 straight weeks without playing, and honestly, it looked like it. Going up against a team as physical as Rockets with the amount of pressure that he was unexpectedly thrown into with Jimmy's injury, I'm not that surprised. And then, of course, the looming free agency contract negotiations, and then the general playoff pressure with a lot of the Warriors fan base, rallying for him to get more minutes. He finishes 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, only got to the line twice. 4 for 12, and yeah, you haven't played in 2 weeks, and now you're going up against, the third best fucking defense in the NBA. It's gonna suck balls. Sure, would have been a great storyline, but it shouldn't be that surprising that, yeah, he struggled in his first game back, and we'll see if he gets more in rhythm. Obviously, he possesses a lot of the physical tools that most of the other Warriors don't, and even besides Jimmy getting hurt, I think there was a lot of validity in getting him more burn. Anyway, connects to the role player Showtime overall, Quentin Post, Pat Spencer, Guy Santos. Pat Spencer should get more fucking minutes, and I think that at this point it's a pride thing with Kerr. I think, granted, yes, he's got as many rings as fingers, basically, and he's going to drive the boat and tell you what to do. The whole running joke about him is he hates young players, doesn't have time for it. Yeah, when you, I guess, have a decade-long dynasty and you are constantly trying to squeeze as much championship contention out of Steph Curry as possible, I guess I understand it. Pat Spencer had 11 points in 12 minutes, and there was a point in the second quarter he had, I think, 9 points in 8 minutes, and it was kind of automatic offense because similar to Ty Jerome, at least to me, that kid is totally fearless, and just the gravitas that he plays with, particularly in a downhill manner, where if you are the big coming back and he's coming down off a pick and roll and you're doing the whole covering 2 guys, 1 person thing, just the way that he's moving, it really brings a lot of rim pressure. Granted, I mean, he literally hasn't played enough to kind of prove how great maybe of a finisher he is or how terrible of one he is, but he's probably going to put it up. And I think you saw that on, I believe, the second drive or possession that he was really driving. Pretty much threw it up over Şengün, and it allowed Looney, who was sharing the floor with him, one of the best rebounders per minute, to put it right back in. And I just thought that kind of downhill pressure towards the rim, it is not something that the Warriors have. Granted, higher level and full health, you don't necessarily want to be fucking around with your entire scheme offensively. But that is the kind of shit that Ty Jerome does that wins the Cavs games when he comes in for 20 minutes and fucking destroys you, because he's basically Luka Doncic, diet form, and you just have to give him all this attention. And Ty is just really, really, really talented offensively. So even when you give him all the attention from your second unit, he's literally just better than they are. Pat Spencer at least poses the same amount of pressure in a new way that I think should have been leveraged more. Quentin Post, still a rookie, had some flashes of the unfortunate fouling issue that he is dealing with, being a 7-foot spacing big. Obviously knocked down some really helpful and critical shots when they were trying to mount their comeback. His net benefit or cost is unfortunately tied, I believe, to the broader second units, basically, because he shot pretty well, but their second unit overall, or it really became the first one, didn't end up netting a ton of great positives. And since he's not going to be getting offensive rebounds or filling in the phantom stat sheet in between, generating turnovers, blocking shots, or whatever, is still a rookie thing and kind of tough to fully bank on him. Guy Santos gets his 4th personal foul with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. That's just tough. And last but not least is the whistle gripe about Steph's off-ball physicality and all of these screenshots you see of Jalen Green hugging him and all of the memes and jokes about that. And I don't want to be condescending or malicious when I say this, but I think that gripe is understandable, particularly looking at the whistles that Jalen Brunson got and Luka Doncic got in the Pistons-Timberwolves series, respectively. And the apples-to-apples logic, I completely understand why that is frustrating to see. But what I would implore the takeaway to be is recognizing then the importance of establishing physicality early and forcing the issue in the minds of the officials early on. When you are playing as physical of a team as the Houston Rockets, you are effectively forced to match or attempt to exceed their level of physicality, because if you don't, the refs cannot call every single foul. And if you just take getting fucking punched in the mouth over and over again, they're going to have to use that as a quasi baseline of what tonight's whistle is going to view a foul being or not being. This is the crux of why specific teams seem to get away with more contact over and over and over again. Oklahoma City and the Houston Rockets are probably the 2 most physical defenses, maybe Orlando, and they do it from start to finish. They are up in you all game, and they are going to make sure the refs adjust to them as far as, I'm just playing defense, man. Yes, I'm grabbing Steph. Yes, I'm doing XYZ, but there's no way you're going to be calling all of this all night. And so therefore, the Warriors have to do a better job of just matching the physicality defensively on their own end, get the Rockets frustrated with, I don't know, Jalen Green trying to pull up for stuff or Draymond wrestling his way for rebounds. And frankly, he has done the best job of anyone on the Warriors. I'm trying to paint the story here from essentially the official's perspective, where this cannot be there is a universal truth when defining what a foul is off ball as a function of physicality on stopping Steph. Everything is contextualized and subjective in that specific game, because you don't have the same free throw total on both ends of the floor. Those kinds of things can be influenced, not dictated, but influenced by how aggressive and how physical a team is at the onset, which establishes an organic baseline of what the fouls are going to end up being. And a good proxy to illustrate this was Game 2 of Lakers-Timberwolves, where you had the same number of personal fouls in the entirety of Game 1 that were called by halftime of game 2. Yes, it's easy to throw your hands up and scream Laker free throw conspiracy. It's always been this way. I'm not necessarily going to write that off entirely, but what I will say is you cannot kill the argument that the Lakers came out of the gates in that game, forcing the issue with a lot more energy and especially a lot more physicality defensively, switching everything and not letting Minnesota just waltz right in and create collapses on their back line and getting all these open threes. There is a strong correlation, and I would argue pretty close to causation, between how physically you're playing from the jump and what kind of whistle you are ultimately going to get. And so a lot more physicality on defense for LA. Luka starts getting touch fouls. All of a sudden, both teams are in vortex of personal fouls and whistles blaring. And you have, again, it's worth repeating, the same number of personal fouls by halftime that were called in the entirety of the first game of that Lakers-Timberwolves series. Hopefully that helps clarify some of the deeper level psychology and kind of under the radar process and decision making behind foul calling and etc. And within the game, you bet your ass this is going to be an enormous point of emphasis on the Warriors' end, especially if they don't have Jimmy Butler to force the issue offensively, because if he doesn't get the fouls on Şengün and Amen Thompson and whoever on the Rockets side, then they aren't going to have anything holding them back from barreling right down into all of the Warriors standing their ground on defense. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.